my traditional books, and I can write my.
It's the same woman.
My indie
like
books.
it in
It's me. My friend Vicky believed that.
I like that.
She's my best friend, Vicky. Now.
I'm gonna have to start using that.
Yeah. No, they're not. They're not the same woman. Actually, I don't think. I talked to my cover artist about that, and I think she just, was able to grab.
I like that you don't see your face, because then you can like leave it all up to you.
Because it yeah. Yeah. And I think it's even a different dog in all of them. There's a dog on front of every cover. And I was joking with my editor once. I said, you like the dog better than me, because the dog's on the cover, on the side, spine, usually on the back. And she's like, well, technically, that's an unfair question, because the dog is fictitious. So she didn't really. I was like, oh, nice way to get around that one. Thank you. I'm glad that. So
if the dog were real, it might be a problem.
Yeah. Well, the dog talks.
Yes.
Because it's paranormal, so I can do that.
The dog is hilarious.
And the dog kind of says what I think my dog would say to me if my, Yeah. I had this dog for a while who just would look at you and you'd know what he was thinking. We'd have conversations because I was living by myself, and that's what you do. And so the dog is kind of based on that. And he can say things that the heroine can't, because it sounds better coming out of a dog when it's really, really, really true than her.
Great idea.
And he's actually a character that grounds her in the real world, because she goes off on this adventure with her biker witch grandma and everybody, and but he knew her before, and he knows who she really is. And as she's recreating her identity, he can help ground her.
Oh wow!
So it really works.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's a good series. It's a very good series.
Are we officially doing our thing, or are we?
Actually, we're about to start.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So. We'll start with that. Actually, I'm probably going to keep all of that because it was so good in talking about your books. But yes, so we are sitting here. Thank you for joining us. This is the SLWG Author Series. We are here on the third Thursday of every month. Tonight I am joined by Angie Fox, New York Times bestselling author of the Accidental Demon Slayer series and the Monster Mash series. And we'll get into both of those here in a bit. But Angie, everyone say hello to Angie. Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. She is an author of several books about vampires, werewolves, and things that go bump in the night. She claims that researching her stories can be just as much fun as writing them. In the name of fact-finding, Angie has written with Harley biker gangs, explored the tunnels underneath the Hoover Dam, and found interesting recipe for Mama's Coal Pot's Southern Skunk Surprise.
It's true.
And she's still trying to get the courage to try.
I tried it with chicken.
Oh, you tried it with chicken.
It was good with chicken.
It was good
but
with chicken.
I couldn't quite do the, I didn't know where you'd buy skunk,
Okay, that's a good point. I'm not.
So that's my excuse.
There you go. That's a good excuse.
Was that a problem to readers, though? And then exactly, that's what I said. So you shouldn't say that again. You can't deny things when they're on video. So shoot.
Okay, well, you just were talking a little bit, but you were talking about the Accidental Demon Slayer series, so I'm going to ask you to now talk about the Monster Mash series, which the latest of is Immortally Ever After.
Sure. Well, there's only 3 books in that series.
Yes.
So it's a trilogy, and so all of them are out now, which is cool. And that series started when due to a bit of a pet peeve I have with paranormals, I read a ton of them, and there's always, people can get shot, they can get their heads chopped off practically, things, there's horrible battles, but everybody just somehow gets fixed. Things grow back and everything's fine. And to me, I'm like, well, what kind of stakes are those, I mean, these are great books, but so I thought, well, what if things don't grow back right? What if you lose a part, or, it grows back sideways, or, who handles all of that? So I started thinking about what the medics would do in this situation. And I kind of came up with, I used to love the old TV show MASH, and so I like the idea of a MASH unit. So I came up with this paranormal MASH unit, and in the middle of this great paranormal war. And so the heroine is a surgeon in the unit, and the male protagonist is a special ops soldier that is on her table that she saves.
Okay, excellent.
So
I have to ask about the Accidental Demon Slayers, which you just went into a little bit, so I'm probably going to keep a lot of that. But the next one is Beverly Hills Demon Slayer.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what do you think is? I mean, we're in our 6th book now.
I know.
So what do you think's the success?
I think
the voracious readers are coming.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's the biker witches.
And I would agree.
Really, they are free. She has to run off with her grandma's gang of biker witches after she finds out she's a demon slayer. because these things happen.
Yes.
And the biker witches again they're fully realized people. The heroine is kind of how we all are, I think, or at least how I am. Always trying to do things right. Always trying to make sure she's got her bases covered. She's kind of the modern woman where she feels like she's always running behind and not quite there. And these women have really they've been running from a demon for 30 years, so they've taken to the road. They're a coven of witches. They've gotten older, but they know that every day could be their last, and so they are just living life to the fullest. They say what they think, and they're so much more advanced as people, I think, than she is, and she can learn a lot from them. And I think that's what readers really like, is they like the witches. They like to see what they're going to do, because they'll do things that I wouldn't do. I get uncomfortable sometimes around them.
Yes.
I was writing Demon Slayer Wedding, and it was the first time Lizzie's adopted mother meets the biker witch. She's never told her mom that she's a demon slayer or about the biker witches or about any of it, because how do you explain it? And so she's never quite told her mom that her fiance is a shape-shifting griffin or anything. So her mom shows up to plan her wedding, and she's kind of like going, how do I approach this? And then the biker witches kind of blow it all open for her.
Okay.
And I wrote the chapter, and I called up a friend of mine who I run my chapters by before they go to the editor. She writes for Simon & Schuster, and I said, I either made a really big mistake, or I think this is really different and good. And it turns out all my readers love that chapter. But, it makes me uncomfortable to write it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they? But I think that's one of the things I've had to learn, and I have to keep learning, is that when you're writing, it makes you uncomfortable, when you're just really nervous about what you wrote, that's usually when it's really good. Okay. And when you're trying to please, like when I wrote my 3 unpublished books, I wrote going, boy, I hope this impresses an editor or an agent. And I was writing from that perspective of, I don't want to mess up. I want to be the good girl. I want to figure all this out and figure out the way to write and the secret that I thought was to writing. And really, when I wrote Accidental Demon Slayer, I was just done with it. I was tired of trying to fit everything into boxes, and I just wrote something that I thought would never sell because it was too crazy. And again, I was uncomfortable after every time I wrote. I had a writing session. I'd be like, oh, this is just and that was the one that sold, started my career, and hit the New York Times list. So, it's good to be uncomfortable.
So at this point now that we have 6, does this mean there's 7 and 8?
There's going to be 9.
9
total. That's it. When I originally sold the series, it was going to be a 5-book arc. I was going to end with Demon Slayer Wedding. But then my readers have been really after me. They're like, that's it? And I was like, well, shoot, Demon Slayer Wedding did really, really well. I mean, the series is on an upward arc, and I thought,
then you can't stop it.
Okay, but I'm a planner, and I want to know where it's going. I don't have throwaway books. I don't have even short stories that don't impact the series. And so I had to really think about it, decide what do I want to do with this. And so I've come up with a 9-book arc now.
Okay,
that's it.
I'm really curious. Now I'm going to have to read the next 3, because I've read the first 4. So.
Yeah, Beverly Hills comes out this summer.
Or the first 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on from there, someone who is both traditionally published and self-published, making you a hybrid author.
Yes.
Is this something you plan to continue?
Yes.
Excellent. And I'm curious, do you feel a more sense of control, or is that more frightening to have that level of control?
Writing's always frightening.
Okay.
And I'm a control freak. I'm a perfectionist, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good that there's a reason for every single word, but it's bad in that can lock me up. But that's been that way for traditional and that's that way for anything I write. So that's just, you have to know yourself as a writer and go, yeah, that's just going to be that way. But as far as the freedom, it's great. I can work with my same cover artist who did all of my traditional books, who does my books for St. Martin's Macmillan, and but I get what I want. I don't have to call my editor and go, I hope they listen to me on this or that,
Yes.
And my publishers have given me great covers, but this time I can choose. Like this cover, I don't know if you can see it. When my editor first sent it to me, she said, what do you think? And it's dog, bike, motorcycle. Yes. It works, In the battle axe, yeah. For a while, it was like she was like, "What kind of weapon can I get in here that's not in the book, but will be kind of cool looking?" And but the girl has a dark necklace on, which that's nice. But in the books, she wears this emerald necklace that's given to her by the male lead, and it changes things. It changes shape, and it can go from anything from things that are funny to weapons that she really needs. And I said, well, I made this big deal about this necklace, so can't we have it green? You know, you don't have to have it emerald, just color it just green, because I'm going to get a ton of reader mail. You know,
yes.
So can we just do that? And because my editor asked me, what do you think? And then I get this email back, oh, I was just being polite. It's already in production. When I asked you what you think, you know, I just thought you'd say you liked it because you're easygoing. But no, you have no say, and it's gone. You know, and then I got a ton of reader mail.
Okay.
Do you realize? I'm like, yes, I realize. You know,
well, to that end, then, do you have a favorite way of interacting with your readers?
A lot of times at book signings, really. I mean, that's
Okay.
a lot of fun because you meet people who can ask me questions about my books that I can't answer.
Oh, wow.
Which is always fun enough. Well, because I might have written a book 5 years ago.
Oh, geez, okay.
And they're like, well,
Yeah,
in chapter 3 of that book, what was the character thinking?
Okay.
You know, when they said this, and did it really impact what they thought in chapter 7 of that other book when they did that? I'm like, that's a really good point. You know, and I'd written it a while ago, and in fact, I've turned some of those readers into beta readers.
Yeah, okay.
Some of them are so, you know, good at it. I'll say, you know, would you like to read my book before I send it to my editor? And they're all thrilled because they get the early copy of the book.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge help to me because they catch things.
Okay.
You know,
well,
like
who better to know your canon than your greatest fans?
Well, like throwaway things. Like in book 4, the character, she's running through the Las Vegas airport trying to catch a flight with the biker witches, which never goes well. And I was so focused on biker witches and airport and craziness. And she needs to get out of town. She really does. There's an emergency, magical. And the beta reader says, well, she doesn't like to fly. I said, yes, she does. She's got to get on the flight. She's going to go, and she's going to go to Greece. And we finally get to meet the whole family that we've been talking about for the first 3 books, this Greek family on this island, you know. And she said no. And she found that she booked 1 chapter 3, you know, whatever page it was a throwaway line. She didn't want to get on her grandma's motorcycle, so she's like, I suggest flying, but I hate flying, or something like that. I don't remember that.
Wow.
I wrote it years before. I have a Bible that was put together by my copy editor at the publishing house. They don't put throwaway lines in a series Bible. They put who's alive and who's dead and all that good stuff, but they don't put that. But my core readers know.
Okay.
And so that was huge for me.
That is huge, actually. That's kind of cool.
So, yeah.
Especially to know that they've dug through your book to that level. I like
Yeah.
that. So we have a bunch of authors out there, so I'd like to throw out a couple of questions for the authors out there.
Sure.
What actually inspired you to become a writer?
I'm a huge book geek. I love to read, and you know, I was the kid that, you know, was hiding books when my parents put me to bed. I had my flashlight that they didn't know about, and I'd get in, you know, and I'd position it to where it really wouldn't show through the door too much. And I knew, like, when my dad certain shows come on, that he wouldn't come check on me. My mom was in bed, and I'd read. And I love to read. I always was a mystery snob. I thought those were the best, and, you know, forget about the rest. And I was in college at Mizzou, a journalism major, and I had 5 roommates. And all 5 of them, we were all talking about books one night, and they'd all read Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. And I was like, no, I don't want to read paranormal. I'm so cool with my mysteries. And so between all of them, they found most of the beginning of the series and stacked them by my bed. And since we're all in the same room, they knew if I was going to read them or not. So I thought, I'll humor them. I'll read the opening, and I'll tell them I don't like it, and I'll tell them why, and it'll be great, and we'll be done. And I was a really good student, but I skipped class that entire week and read the entire Vampire series. Because, you know, when you can skip classes when you're a good student. So yeah, I skipped everything, and I read the whole series, and I loved it. And so I thought, okay, I like paranormal. But yeah, I'm a big geek, and you know, it's fun because then now I get to be colleagues with people that I admire. So like I was at a big signing with Anne Rice, and you know, you're in there before they let the people in. And so I got to go over and say hi and be a geek on her, and it was fantastic. I'm like, this is why I write, you know. So yeah, and it's fun. I'm going to be doing a panel at a writers' conference in New Orleans with Charlene Harris.
Oh wow!
And that's going to be fun in May, you know. So I get to hang out and say hi to her. And
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, that for me, that's kind of the reward. That's the book geek in me. If I had to choose between reading and writing, I would choose reading.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and they tell you to read a lot, so that's always important.
Yeah, it gets me when writers say I don't read.
Yeah,
I don't read when I write, because it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like saying a chef saying, "Well, I don't eat anybody's food while I'm a chef."
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, don't be a chef then, because you're missing out on too much.
Exactly. there you go. Read.
Read, seriously. Even in your genre, people get scared about that, but you don't pick up other ideas. To me, it's just how do you give up those books?
I would think you also need to know what's going on in your particular genre, so you're not.
Yeah, so when you think you have this brilliant new idea, and then somebody else already had it, and you're like, well, there you go. Guess that's not brilliant or new. Move on.
So do you have a process when you write? Do you sit down at the same time every day, or do you just find time whenever you can?
I try to. I think that's the best way to write, is to have a certain time. I call it my appointment with my muse.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that I'm actually going to get good words on a page. Some days you're just not going to write well.
Yeah.
But if you're there and you're putting words on the page, it's a lot, as Nora Roberts says, it's a lot easier to edit than it is to stare at a blank page. And she has a couple of profanities in there when she says it. It sounds
Yes.
clear, but I'm not going to do that because you're recording me. So anyways, but yeah, so it's good, and it keeps you in the flow of a book. I find that if I sit down for at least, I tend to write 3 or 4 hours a day now that I do it full time. Mm-hmm. But even before, when I was kind of working the day job and writing my first books, I would write for at least an hour a day, because that would keep you in the story. It keeps you in the book. I'm going to really pay for this week. My kids are on spring break, and I knew I have a short story due at the end of the month. And I knew if I write an hour a day on the short story, the ideas will still come. I'll be driving in my car, and I'll get ideas, and the story will still be alive in me. And even if I don't get a lot of words on the page, in just that hour, I'll be making progress. I didn't do it. I was going to get up early and do it, because again, it's an hour of focused time, so that means my kids get up at 7 in the morning. I'd be getting up at about 5:30. I didn't do that because I'm just, I'm a lazy butt this week. And so as a result, I know next week when I sit down to write, it's going to be like pulling teeth for 2 days at least, on a deadline. So for me, the book's due at the end of the month, and I'm already on an extension. Trisha, if you're reading this, I know exactly what's going to happen.
It's all
pretty much done.
Yeah,
I'm just polishing.
Exactly.
Well, I'm not on the first chapter. I finished the first chapter, actually, I did, but the rest of it's not done. Except, she's in the UK, she won't know. But anyways, so I find that if you actually keep that schedule, even if it's hard, even if you go, I don't feel inspired, I don't know what I'm going to write, it's not exciting to me today, okay, fine, but if you don't do this today, then it's going to be that much harder tomorrow and that much harder tomorrow. And if you have that appointment, it gets easier and easier.
That is great advice for you writers out there. So I do want to ask, so you've talked about, you write at the same time every day. You've talked about the fact you're a big planner. Mm-hmm. So do you have the big giant outline sitting out there? When you sit down, do you just let it go?
No, that messed me up. I tried to do that for the first 3 books when I was unpublished. I said I was going to outline everything, and it was going to be fantastic, and I was going to know exactly what's going on, and therefore people will buy it because it will be so structurally perfect. And my 3rd book, actually, I got a wonderful rejection letter from Donald Moss. I only queried my top 5 agents, and he was one of them. And I get this big packet in the mail, and I thought, wow, he's going to accept me. And it turns out they call you when they accept you. I didn't know that. And this was back in the time when you mail everything.
Yeah.
But he gave me this great epistle of a rejection letter. It was several pages long.
Oh, wow.
But one of the things he said, he said, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with this, only that there's nothing, technically wrong. It's all structured perfectly, but it's not you, and it's not your voice, and it's not what you should be writing, and I don't know what you should be writing, and I know this is very frustrating advice to get, but it just feels like you're doing it for somebody else and not for yourself. And I took that advice, and that's what caused me to go crazy and write The Accidental Demon Slayer. I pulled that book from submission and did it. But I think that's what you have to do, is for me at least. That's the trick. Everybody's got to find their own way of working it. But for me, if I structure it too much, it loses its life.
Okay.
And if I start with a grand idea and I know where I'm going, then I just plod forward on that road.
I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that.
But
I like that.
there's nothing wrong with my critique partner, who writes for Simon & Schuster, plots out everything. She has a 35-page outline for a book.
Oh, wow.
And knows exactly what's happening. And she's very successful.
I'm
Kristen
sure.
Bailey, YA.
When you get that. Okay.
Young adult author. If you read young adult, she's awesome.
Well, let me ask this. We ask this of everyone we do here on the SLWG Author Series. Do you have a problem or a favorite of the first line and the last line? Do you have a preference? Is one harder than the other?
I don't know. I think it depends on the book.
Okay.
For me, I'd say probably the first line's harder because you're trying to set the tone for the book. And there are certain books that I've had to start 4 or 5 times before I got the Monster Mash series was one. I kept starting it and it kept going dark, and it just wasn't the right tone, and I couldn't figure out where it was. And I kept thinking I might have it right, and my critique partner would say, Kristen was like, no, she'd send it back, you know. So when you're finding that tone, it's tough. And then by the time I'm at the end, I usually know what needs to happen to give that little flip at the end, to give that little last bit of satisfaction.
Excellent. So to that end, you do a lot of world building in your books because your books are paranormal and they have elements of, some exciting fantasy, some crazy stuff. I highly recommend checking them out. But is there anything exciting about world building that you particularly love? Do you love just creating this? I know your witchcraft is kind of exciting. I
do like to create. That's my favorite part about writing, and that's different people have things that they have a knack for and that comes naturally to them. Like plotting is not my thing. I have to have a whole system of checks and balances so that I don't, mess up on the plotting. But as far as what were we talking about? Plotting. As far as world building, that part is my easy fun part. Okay. Although it is tough. Like I remember I was writing the Monster Mash series, and I was trying to create some context around this MASH unit in Limbo, and how does that look? And so I called up my critique partner, who's awesome, and I was like, okay, we need something zany and crazy, and I'm like, so we came up with we call it the junkyard, basically. We call it the minefield, but it's really a junkyard, and it's where because they don't really have any waste disposal facilities in Limbo, so it's where all the broken, nasty bits of everything go. Okay. And it's kind of on the outside of camp, but beyond that is where their chaplain, Father Macario, is, because he likes to minister to the lost souls of Limbo on the side. And it's where the rocks are, which is where the only place you can really go to be alone, and if you want to make out with anybody, that's where you go. But because you need to go through the minefield, people have laced it with all kinds of practical jokes, because there's this theme of whoever catches their camp commander, nobody ever gets to go home. You earn like 2 hours of R&R for every 20 years you're there, and you can't use it until you get 2 weeks. It's the gods. It's the war of the gods. They don't understand that not everybody's immortal. So everybody's pooled together their leave time, and it's up to 3.5 weeks. And whoever could pull a practical joke on the camp commander gets the whole pot.
Gotcha. Okay.
So everybody's testing out their pranks in this minefield. And so, if you go through it's that kind of stuff. But, a lot of it is just bouncing back and forth going, I need something dumb. I need something horrifically dumb that I can go through and have 3 books and just do weird stuff with. So.
Do you ever find that the two worlds, because they are separate worlds, do you ever have a problem with world building between the two?
I throw cookies out there.
Okay.
I never officially say that it's all real on both series.
Okay.
But I throw cookies in there for my readers.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun because then all the super readers can go through and they find these little things. They're like, wait a second, is the hellhound that Father Macario owns the same family of hellhounds as, because he got it from his exorcist friend in Vegas, which there's a short story that takes place in Vegas with an exorcist too. I
like that. So to that end, do you have any? You have a great voice. You have not read her books. I highly recommend it because she has a great voice. If you're looking for a voice, do you have any advice for writers seeking voice?
For me, it was always don't screw with your voice.
Okay.
I kept trying to be somebody else when I was writing. I figured the easiest way to get published, and I was a mystery freak for a long time. I thought, a mystery will be the easiest way. Ha ha ha. No, I have three untold mysteries. And I thought, okay, I'll create my voice to be. I decided in advance what my voice was supposed to be.
Okay.
But in doing so, I completely buried my natural voice, trying to be somebody else, and that's kind of what Donald Moss, I think, was trying to tell me too. It just sounded funny. It didn't sound authentic. And I think your natural voice really is how you would sound if you were telling the story, and who you are. And so really stop trying to create a voice and just be your voice. Own your voice. Own your method of storytelling. Don't try to sound like your favorite author. Don't try to sound like me. Don't try to sound like anybody.
Okay, that's good
and
advice.
And that'll come off as authentic and real. And that's what people want. They want the story that only you can tell.
That's very good advice for finding your voice. So I do want to ask, I know I personally have many a phrase in my novels that I have to go through and erase because they appear about 60, 70 times per chapter. I'm curious if a New York Times bestselling author has this same problem of words and phrases that just kind of show up
Oh, yeah.
every couple of pages.
Kristen and I call it the word of the book, and
word
it's
of the
always
book.
different.
Okay.
What was the word of the book for this one? I shouldn't tell you because it's probably still in there. I do like a word search at the end to try to yank as many of them as I can. But it was it elaborate or everything was elaborate.
Okay.
Everything was elaborately done and very, because they're in this old robber baron type, like turn of the century mansion for this wedding on the California coast with all the cliffs and everything. And so everything was ornate. That was another one. Everything was ornate.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So we got rid of a lot of ornate things.
Okay.
But yeah, there's always a word of the book.
That is so good to
And
hear.
it's and you don't even realize it. And that's usually where your critique partner or your editor will be like, "What are you doing?" And they're actually not that hard to get rid of. Sometimes, as I'm writing, things were getting ornate. But I was on a roll, and I was feeling the story, and I was feeling the characters, and so I let them run out into that ornate garden maze, and I let them find
Yes.
that ornate Victorian. What was it? It was a observatory, like those big observatories that they had in Victoria.
Yes.
That was ornate, and I just went with it. I'm like, everything's ornate. I don't care because I'm feeling the story, and that's what helps me stay in it, and I love it, and great. And then I went back later and took them all out before I ever gave it to my editor. But don't let little details like that throw you, because it's not about that. It's about how you tell that story and who those characters are and what's happening in that moment. And you can always clean up that little dumb stuff because everybody has it, but you can't always capture that moment back where you're feeling it and you understand what needs to happen.
Excellent. So to that end, I'm now going to open it up to some questions because you have been awesome in answering all of mine, but I know there are other people out there with them. So does anyone here have any questions they'd like to ask?
I'm new to this.
Yeah, feel free.
How did you get started? Like in the very, very, very beginning? Were you an English major?
Oh, I was journalism major
Okay.
at Mizzou, and that really taught me how to write type. But I didn't want to be a journalist, it turns out, because all those facts and things like that. So then I went into advertising writing because that was a little more up my alley. But then they had a lot of restrictions and facts too. So then I thought I could do this and really make up my own stuff.
Okay.
But
How did you meet with your first publisher?
I kind of did the back way, actually. I had this idea for the Excellent Demon Slayer, and I was writing it, and I showed it to a friend of mine who's a English, I think he's got his master's or something like that. And he said, "You can't start it that way. It's too weird. You have to ease people into it. Biker witches, what? No, you can't do that. You have to just slow it down." But I really liked my opener, and I liked where the book was going. So there was this contest for unpublished manuscripts where published writers would judge it, and then the top 3 would get, it was top 5, would get ranked by an agent and an editor. And I wasn't going for the ranking, I was just going for published authors telling me if it's good or not. And you had to have a finished manuscript, but I said, what are the odds? So I just sent it in. That's the other thing, people are like, oh, should I have it finished? I'm like, So I sent it in, and it made the finals. So I didn't get my feedback, but I thought, well, they must have liked it. So I kept writing it, and it went through the finals, and it didn't win. But one of the editors, the editor that read it, was Leah Holtenschmidt at Dorchester Publishing, and she wanted to see the whole book. And I only had like 16 chapters done at that point. And I was at a writer's conference where she was. I was hiding from her. I think I'm the only one that was hiding from this editor. And it was up for another award. From an unpublished award from the mystery writers at this conference, and Leah was there. It was horror of horrors, and so I avoided her because she didn't know what I looked like, which was awesome. And I was at a table with the finalists, and I was talking to this other writer who was published, and she was really cool, and she's from Iowa, and I'm from Missouri, and we're having a great time. And we were talking for like close to an hour, and we get down to they're starting the show or the presentation, and I was like, oh, who are you? So I can root for you, and we're going back and forth, and I told her who I was, and she goes, I'm supposed to look for you, Angie Fox. My editor wants to meet you. And I was like, no, it's getting ready to start. We don't need to do this. It's fine. So she drags me back there, and Leah's like, what happened? I thought, you were going to send me that, and I can't tell her that it was supposed to be done, and it's not, and I'm on chapter 16. So I told her I was polishing. So I'm polishing it. I said, but I'm polishing. It's going to be great. She's like, oh, I love the talking dog was hilarious, and the biker witches. I want to see this. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll send it to you. And I thought, oh, no. So I went home and I got up every morning at 4 in the morning, and I wrote from 4 until 7 when my kids got up, and then I wrote when they napped because I had small kids at the time, and I just basically, and there's nothing worse though than that feeling when you're unpublished and like killing yourself, because I thought, what if she only reads up to chapter 5? And here I am working on chapter 18. She's never going to read. I'm coming downstairs in the dark. You know, I'm sleep deprived. I'm exhausted. Who's even says this is any good? You know, but you do it because it's your dream. You know, and I finished the manuscript on a Thursday, and I sent it to her. I queried a bunch of agents on Friday. Not a bunch. My top 5 list again, which didn't include Donald Moss because he doesn't represent paranormals. And later he was like, oh. But anyways, it turns out you shouldn't always listen to their websites. I didn't know that. But anyways, I did my top 5. And then on Monday, Leah had read it over the weekend and called me and offered representation, or offered to buy the book. She wanted, you know. So then I had to hurry up and go backwards. And a couple of the agents had wanted to see more of the manuscript, so then I emailed them back and was like, well, I just sold it. So, you know, and they're like, well, let's figure this out. Let me read it, you know. So.
That's the kind of problem you want to have.
It was kind of crazy. But, you know, so whenever anybody says, well, I'm not finished, should I turn it into this certain contest? I'm like, heck yeah. Because that way you know if it's going to push a button. And, you know, as long as you finish it in a reasonable amount of time, you know, there's still a slot. You know, if somebody asks for something and it takes a year for you to give it to them, well, chances are if they were looking for a steampunk paranormal, they found it. But if it's just a couple of weeks, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if you're sleep deprived and the laundry's not done.
We have a lot of questions coming in.
Excellent.
So one is, what's your biggest challenge writing the Monster Mash series?
My biggest challenge, I think the darkness of it. For me, that's a really dark trilogy. And I knew it was a trilogy. I had that arc planned out. I knew all the major things that had to happen. And the second book is kind of sad, and readers really got after me, and they said, it's not going to be solved. And I said, that's the whole point of a trilogy, is for you to think it's not going to be solved, but it will. And the third book is coming out in 6 months, so it's not like it's a big long wait, you know.
Yes.
But it was very dark, and people didn't expect me to go to certain places because they're more used to my biker witches, you know. So that was cool, and it was hard. You know, I immediately went straight back into Demon Slayer Wedding after the last Monster Mash book, because I needed that. I needed to just. I was afraid I'd lost my voice for this because Monster Mash was darker for me, but it pops back in. You know? Again, you have to get in the moment of the book.
Yes.
Well, why did you decide on a griffin for a love interest? That's one of our other questions.
Griffins, I'm surprised more people haven't, really. Griffins were a symbol in the early church of marriage and fidelity and love, because they mate for life, they're extremely loyal, they know what they want, and I thought that's a good guy for me to have. I'm not really into love interests who are like, yeah, you have to change for me, or I don't like you for who you are, or I'm not going to be here for you. And for him, you know, she had to work through her own issues, but in the love story that goes through the series, you know, she never has to worry about whether or not he's going to be there for her. And to me, that's big, and that's what I wanted in that. And a griffin symbolized that. Plus, they're wicked cool when they shift. So.
I got a few more.
Anyone else have a question here in the audience, or we're going to jump back online and grab a question from there? Okay, jumping back online to another question there.
Okay, what is the most exotic creature that you've included in your books?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
The most exotic creature that you've included in your books.
Oh, I don't exotic. Well, I've got Medusa, and she starts in book 2 of the Monster Mash series. She's pregnant.
Okay.
And so they've got to deal with Medusa baby mama drama. And it was just a short little scene that didn't make the first book of her treating a pregnant Medusa. But it was so funny, but it just didn't fit anywhere. And that's the thing, like, you can't put a scene in a book, even if you love it, if it doesn't fit. That's hard as a writer, you know. So I pulled it out of the first book, but I ended up using it to start the second book. And so that was fun, because then in the third book, you know how you have these certain people in your life that you're not really friends with, but they invite you to like a baby shower or a wedding because they don't really know a lot of people, or they're trying to get, you know. So Medusa invites our protagonist, her OB, to the baby shower. And so she's got to go to Medusa's baby shower with all the Fates and some of the Furies and different crazy characters, and you know what kind of gifts they give, and so that was just a lot of fun. So I think that would probably be my favorite one.
Hey, that's a great
You know.
Great monster.
Medusa ended up being a cool character too. She
She's
figures into
interesting.
the
She's an
series
interesting
finale.
character.
You know, she's got baby strap. I shouldn't say much about what she does. But,
Yes.
yeah.
Don't give away anything.
No, I know.
She is
You're
a great
right.
character.
Yeah. Erase.
Two more questions?
All right, yeah, throw them out. 2 more questions.
Do you have a favorite series?
Oh, yeah. Like between the
Like
two, or
choosing
just in
between your
general?
children.
Yeah, that is kind of hard.
I like them both for different reasons. Yeah. Oh, nobody will tell. Yeah. I like them for different reasons. I think everything makes you grow as a writer, and so you know, I have favorite books within series. I guess I can tell, but I don't really have a favorite series.
Okay. The very right answer for a writer to say for fans out there, you know.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to anger any of them.
You have to
like,
buy me a couple beers before you really.
Yes. All right, we got one last question?
One, yeah, is when is your next book coming out?
Beverly Hills Demon
Yes.
Slayer is coming out in June of this year, 2014, and then the book, the story I'm turning in, at the end of this month, because it will be good too.
Of course.
It's a really cool story actually. It's tentatively, I don't know if this will change, but I'm calling it Date with a Demon Slayer, and it's Lizzie and Dimitri's first anniversary and the things that go wrong.
Oh, wow, that's
And
exciting.
that is going to be in the Mammoth book of Southern Gothic romance that comes
Okay.
out on November 20th. I just saw the cover. It's pretty cool.
Excellent.
But then I'm also going to be releasing it electronically because I'm going to maintain e-rights.
Oh, okay.
But a couple months later, I'm going to let the book
Yeah.
be out there for a little bit.
And then for those
and
who
then I'm
don't
starting a
know,
new series.
Okay. Oh, right, a new series. Okay. You gotta,
Yeah, but
Can you tease us anything or no?
I can't talk about it
You
though, so I
can't
shouldn't
talk
have even
about
said
it.
anything.
Oh, she got a new series. That's
Yeah,
a
I
tease.
should. But they'll be.
Okay.
I'm going to be releasing it between the Demon Slayer books.
Oh, excellent.
So,
Okay. And for
yeah.
those of you who don't know, Immortally Ever After did recently come out not too long ago.
Yeah, so the MASH trilogy's out and done.
Yes. No, that's out and done.
So if book 2 really just makes you need therapy, don't worry because book 3's already out.
Yes.
You know, I got so much email. The email about that was funny because people are like, I can't believe what you did in book 2. So I went out and I told my friends they didn't read book 1 yet. So they had to go out and buy book 1. And then they went and bought book 2, and they're going to tell you how wrong you are. I was like, I just made like 5 more sales from what you're saying on this email.
That is a great email. I would love to have that kind of reaction.
But and luckily, people did email me after book 3, and they're like, "Whoa, we didn't think you could do it. You did it." And I'm like, "Well, I told you. It's supposed to be helpless, bad things in book 2." And I did do a cliffhanger. I hate cliffhangers. I always
Okay.
have a full story in each book.
That's good.
But there was one certain thing with the love angle that hadn't worked out, and according to what people wanted.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
there's nothing
so-
wrong. I mean, you got to tease them and get them into book 3. And
Not my
apparently,
choice.
you did
It's what
that.
she did.
Exactly.
Didn't do anything.
All right. Well, you have been amazing and great, and thank you so much. This has been a great interview. We truly appreciate it. This was the SLWG author series. I highly recommend you head out and you check out the Demon Slayer series. I loved it, and now I got to finish the last couple and then keep reading more. So this is awesome. And then I highly recommend also checking out the Monster Mash series, where you can check out Medusa. But do check those out. You'll find links with those below if you're catching this later. If not, you can find them all at angiefox.com. She's on Twitter. She's on Facebook. She's everywhere. It's awesome. Do check it out. We thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you to everyone who joined us online. And thank you once again to STLBooks for hosting us tonight. We truly appreciate it. Everyone have a great night, and thank you guys so much.